In the year 2565, humanity had achieved what no one thought possible. After centuries of war and struggle, they had finally secured a place in the Galactic Council. The once fragmented human race was now a recognized power in the galaxy, their influence stretching across distant star systems. But with power came responsibility, and with responsibility came compromise. The humans had always felt like outsiders in the Council, treated as little more than a footnote among the many powerful alien species. They were expected to follow the decisions of the Council, to accept their place in a galaxy of ancient beings, and to play by rules that didn't always align with their own desires. For years, the humans had silently accepted their position. They traded with the Council, participated in diplomatic missions, and offered their military support when called upon. But it wasn't enough. The leaders of Earth grew tired of being pawns in a game they didn't control. They wanted more. They wanted independence. And so, in an unprecedented move, the humans decided to leave the Council. The decision was made in the dead of night, behind closed doors. No one outside the government knew what was happening until the official announcement came. The humans had voted to withdraw from the Galactic Council, to stand alone in the vastness of space. At first, the news was met with a mixture of disbelief and concern. How could they abandon such a powerful alliance? What would this mean for their future? Across the galaxy, the alien leaders of the Council were stunned. Many were angry, feeling betrayed by their once allies. Some tried to persuade the humans to reconsider, offering them better deals, more influence, but the humans refused. It wasn't just about politics, it was about pride. The humans had had enough of being treated like second-class citizens. They wanted to chart their own course, to make their own decisions without interference from the Council or anyone else. The decision caused an uproar, and the galaxy was divided. Some species supported the humans, believing that they had the right to choose their own path. Others, however, saw this as a dangerous move, one that would have dire consequences. The humans were not yet powerful enough to stand alone against the vast forces of the galaxy. They were just beginning to understand the true power of the alien civilizations they had been rubbing shoulders with. As soon as the announcement was made, strange things began to happen. Ships from various factions appeared near Earth's borders, monitoring the situation. The humans thought it was just a show of force, a reminder of the Council's power. But something felt different. A growing sense of unease spread through Earth's leaders. The decision to leave the Council was not as simple as they had imagined. Rumors began to spread of alien factions displeased by the humans' actions. A few whispered that there were forces within the galaxy who would stop at nothing to punish humanity for its audacity. Some feared retaliation, but no one could say for certain who would strike first. Would it be the peaceful Zorathians, who had always looked down on the humans, or perhaps the cold, calculating Selnar, whose advanced technology could wipe out entire planets in an instant? No one knew. The humans had always believed that the Council was their shield. The vast, interconnected network of powerful alien races had kept them safe from the dangers of the unknown. But now, they were on their own. The first cracks began to show almost immediately. Days after the announcement, strange ships began to hover just outside Earth's atmosphere. They didn't engage, didn't make any attempts to communicate. They simply watched. Some of these ships were unlike anything the humans had ever seen before, their sleek, dark forms resembling nothing from the known universe. Their purpose was unclear, but the message was loud and clear. The humans had just made a dangerous enemy. But even as the mystery of the ships grew, something more alarming happened. Human colonies on distant worlds began to report strange disappearances. Entire settlements vanished overnight, leaving no trace of their inhabitants. At first, it seemed like a coincidence, but the pattern was undeniable. Wherever humans had settled, something was targeting them. The humans began to worry. Their bravado began to fade as they realized the gravity of their decision. They had left the Council, yes, but in doing so, they had upset the balance of power in the galaxy. What had once been a diplomatic withdrawal now seemed like a reckless gamble. The first wave of panic hit Earth, and the government scrambled to figure out what was happening. Was it a coordinated attack? A message from the alien factions that didn't want the humans to stand alone? Then came the first clear sign of an enemy. A lone ship, unlike anything the humans had seen, entered Earth's orbit. It was massive, its surface covered in strange, shifting patterns that seemed to move like liquid. The ship emitted a low, haunting hum that rattled the bones of anyone nearby. It did not speak, nor did it show any sign of hostility, but its presence was a clear threat. It was a warning. Whoever this was, they weren't here to negotiate. As the ship hovered in the sky, a chill settled over Earth. The humans had made their choice, but now they had to face the consequences. Their independence had come at a price, and that price was far higher than they had anticipated. Suspense hung in the air like a storm ready to break. The humans stood on the precipice of a new era, but they weren't sure if they would be able to survive it. The universe was vast, and the consequences of abandoning the Council were just beginning to unfold. Life on Earth began to shift after the humans made their bold decision to leave the Galactic Council. At first, there was a sense of relief. The humans had broken free from the bureaucratic chains of the Council and their politics, and many believed they were finally charting their own destiny. The celebrations were short-lived, however, as a strange unease began to spread through the human race. For every victory in their independence, there seemed to be a shadow lurking over them, one they could not quite name. It started with the whispers. Unsettling rumors began to circulate about strange ships appearing at the edges of human territory. Some claimed to have seen massive, blackened craft, unlike any design they had ever encountered. Others spoke of vessels that seemed to vanish as quickly as they appeared, leaving no trace of their existence. The stories seemed too bizarre to be true, but the frequency of these reports grew until it became impossible to ignore. The humans didn't have the luxury of waiting for these anomalies to explain themselves. Their withdrawal from the Galactic Council had upset a fragile balance of power. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, there were factions and beings whose motives were as inscrutable as they were dangerous. The humans, no longer protected by the collective might of the Council, now found themselves exposed to the unknown. Colonies on distant planets began to experience disturbing occurrences. Outposts that had been peaceful and thriving for years were suddenly cut off from communication. Ships sent to investigate found nothing but abandoned cities, their streets eerily silent, and no signs of struggle or conflict. As weeks passed, the disappearance of entire colonies seemed to follow a terrifying pattern, as though they were being erased from the map one by one. At first, Earth's leadership tried to convince themselves that these were merely coincidences, the natural result of trying to stand apart from the Council. But as the days turned into weeks and the number of missing colonies grew, that reasoning became harder to believe. The humans had no answers, no clear enemy to fight, and no way of understanding what was happening. The sense of vulnerability was palpable. Even on Earth, the people could feel it. The confidence they once had in their independence was starting to fade, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The Galactic Council had been a protector, a shield from the countless dangers lurking in the void of space. Now the humans were alone, vulnerable, and the harsh reality of their decision was beginning to sink in. Then came the message. It wasn't a typical transmission. There were no greetings, no introductions, just a single cryptic sentence delivered in a cold, mechanical voice. You have made your choice. Now you will face the consequences. The message sent a ripple of panic across Earth. The humans had no idea who had sent it, or what it meant. The implications were far more terrifying than they could comprehend. Had they angered an entire faction of the galaxy? Or had they unknowingly disturbed something older and far more dangerous? Days later, more messages followed, but this time they came with visual feeds. Strange, dark ships, moving silently through space. They were massive, unlike anything the humans had seen before. No flags, no insignia, just black hulks of metal gliding toward the human colonies. It was as though they were hunting, and their prey was humanity. The government scrambled to respond. Messages were sent to former allies, trying to negotiate, to plead for assistance. But every message was met with silence. It became clear that the Council was no longer willing to help. Humanity had chosen to stand alone, and the galaxy was watching, waiting for them to pay the price. Then the first real attack came. A remote colony on the outer rim of human space was obliterated in a flash. No distress signal, no warning, just a sudden, terrifying silence. When the debris was examined, it revealed something even more chilling. The colony had been destroyed from within. There were no signs of any external weapons, no impact craters, just the devastation of an unseen force that had torn everything apart. This wasn't a random attack. Whoever was behind it knew exactly how to strike, and they were sending a message. The humans were no longer safe. Desperation set in. Earth's leaders had made their choice to leave the Council, but now they could see just how badly they had underestimated the forces at play. A deep regret began to spread through the population. Could they undo their mistake? Could they return to the Council and beg for forgiveness? It seemed like too much to ask, and yet the alternative, facing these unknown enemies alone, was even worse. The humans had once believed they were strong enough to stand apart, but now they were beginning to understand that their power was nothing compared to the ancient, unknowable forces that ruled the galaxy. Their own technology, once considered cutting edge, was no match for the ships that now loomed over their colonies. The realization came quickly. The universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined, and they were woefully unprepared to face it. In the midst of this panic, a small group of scientists working on Earth's moon discovered something that might help, a mysterious artifact buried deep within the lunar surface, hidden for centuries. It was old, older than anything the humans had ever seen, and its purpose was unclear. But it was clear that it wasn't a random object. It was a weapon, one that could possibly turn the tide in humanity's favor. But it came with a cost. No one knew how to activate it, or what would happen once it was activated. As the days grew darker and the attacks on human colonies intensified, the question remained, was it too late to turn back? Had humanity's decision to abandon the Council sealed their fate? Or could they somehow find a way to survive, to recover from their mistakes, and face the unknown forces that now threatened their very existence? The clock was ticking, and the answers were elusive. The humans had made their decision, but they hadn't yet realized the true cost of that choice. And as they stared into the vastness of space, they knew that their regret had only just begun. The first real strike came when a small, isolated human colony on the outer rim of human space went silent. The colony, known as Arden 7, had been a peaceful settlement, a thriving agricultural world that had managed to remain mostly untouched by the tensions between the Council and the independent human colonies. But one evening, a transmission went out from Arden 7. Only it wasn't a distress signal. It was a single, final transmission that left everyone on Earth speechless with terror. The signal was brief. "They're here," it said. Then there was a loud mechanical screech that distorted the message beyond recognition. And then silence. Earth's leaders scrambled to send ships to investigate, but when they arrived, the colony was gone. Nothing was left. No wreckage, no signs of a struggle. Just an empty planet, its surface scorched and barren, as if it had been wiped clean from existence. This wasn't the first strange disappearance, but it was the first to hit so close to home. The fear was immediate and overwhelming. Arden 7 had been one of the more remote human colonies, but it was also one of the most heavily populated and well-guarded. If this could happen to them, it could happen anywhere. Earth's government, already on edge after the decision to leave the Galactic Council, began to panic. They had no idea who or what could do this, but they understood one thing. Whoever had attacked Arden 7 was no ordinary enemy. As the news spread, the situation on Earth grew more desperate. Across the world, the same questions haunted everyone's thoughts. Who could be behind these attacks? What were they after? And why were they targeting the humans? Many started to realize that the decision to break from the Galactic Council had made them a target. In the past, they had been protected by the might of the Council's combined forces, but now they were exposed, vulnerable, and alone. It wasn't just the disappearance of colonies that kept Earth's leaders awake at night. The strange ships, dark, massive vessels that had been seen hovering near human colonies, continued to appear on the fringes of their territory. These ships didn't attack immediately. Instead, they hovered just outside human space, watching. No one knew who was piloting them, or if they were even piloted at all. They seemed to be waiting, as if studying the humans, observing their every move. For months, the human governments tried to reach out to their former allies in the Galactic Council, but every message was met with silence. The Council, once their shield, had now become a distant, indifferent entity. The humans had made their choice, and the galaxy seemed content to let them suffer the consequences. There was no response to Earth's desperate pleas for help, no ships sent to assist them, and no offers of support from the other races they had once worked with. It became clear that the humans were on their own. They had abandoned the protection of the Council, and now they were facing something far worse than they could have imagined. The galaxy was full of hostile forces, and they were about to find out just how deadly these enemies could be. As Earth's leaders debated what to do next, a lone human scout ship, sent to investigate another missing colony, sent back a terrifying report. They had discovered a massive fleet of ships gathered on the outskirts of human space, waiting. The fleet was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It was a shadowy, intimidating armada of black ships, each one larger and more menacing than the last. And they were not alone. The fleet was flanked by strange, insectoid-looking vessels that scuttled through space with a speed and agility that made the human ships look slow and clumsy in comparison. The scout ship's report was clear. The humans were outmatched. Whatever forces were behind these attacks had an overwhelming advantage, and they weren't interested in negotiation. The fleet had advanced weaponry, far beyond anything the humans had. And now, the humans were facing the true cost of their decision. Their independence had come at a price, and that price was steep. As the human fleet scrambled to prepare for what was undoubtedly going to be a full-scale assault, there was still no word from the Galactic Council. The human ships were preparing for battle, but they knew that without help, their chances of survival were slim. It was a race against time. Every day that passed brought them closer to the inevitable confrontation, and each day that passed without assistance from the Council only deepened their regret. The humans had no idea who their enemy was or what they wanted, but one thing was clear. They had made a grave mistake. The peaceful existence they had taken for granted was gone. They had lost their protection, and now they were facing the harsh reality of what it meant to stand alone in a galaxy full of far more powerful beings. As the first wave of alien ships approached, humanity had only one option: fight. The weapons they had, though powerful, were nothing compared to the forces they now faced. Earth's leaders watched in horror as the fleet drew closer, realizing that the future of the human race was hanging by a thread. They had abandoned the Council, but now they realized just how much they had relied on it for survival. The battle was about to begin, and humanity's fate was uncertain. Could they find a way to survive, or would their decision to leave the Council prove to be the beginning of the end? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: their regret had arrived, and it was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Desperation gripped Earth as the first waves of alien ships loomed on the horizon. The once unthinkable reality had arrived. The humans had made their choice, and now they had to face the consequences. The galaxy had shown them no mercy. Their once proud decision to abandon the Galactic Council had left them exposed, and the enemy that had been stalking them in the shadows was now ready to strike. With the human fleet vastly outnumbered and outgunned, the governments of Earth scrambled to figure out their next move. The threat was immediate and overwhelming. There was no time to waste. Every moment that passed brought them closer to annihilation. The enemy ships were fast, deadly, and efficient. They seemed to know exactly how to dismantle the human defenses with terrifying precision. Even their best ships, faster, more advanced than anything the humans had known, were no match for the alien fleet's overwhelming firepower. In the chaos, the humans' military leaders gathered in secret, desperate to find any possible solution. The humans had always been resourceful, but they were facing an opponent that was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The attack on Arden 7 had been just the beginning. The mysterious ships that had been hovering near human space had not been idle. They had been waiting, gathering their forces. Now it was clear that their objective was to wipe humanity out completely. While military leaders planned their defense strategies, a team of scientists working deep within Earth's lunar base made a groundbreaking discovery. The team had been investigating an anomaly in the lunar surface, a strange energy signature that didn't match any known technology. It was an object buried deep within the moon, something ancient and something powerful. The scientists uncovered a long-forgotten alien weapon hidden in the remnants of an ancient civilization that had once been part of the Galactic Council. It was a relic from an age-long past, a time when the galaxy was ruled by beings whose power and knowledge far exceeded anything the humans had ever imagined. But the weapon was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was complex, its technology far beyond their understanding. It was dormant, its activation code lost to the sands of time. Despite their lack of knowledge, the scientists realized that this weapon might be humanity's only hope. But it wasn't a simple solution. The weapon was highly advanced, and its control systems were encrypted in a language the humans couldn't decipher. With the alien forces closing in, the scientists knew they had no time to waste. If they couldn't unlock the weapon in time, humanity would be doomed. The government quickly assembled a team of the best minds in the galaxy, hoping to break the code and activate the weapon before it was too late. But the pressure was immense. The enemy ships were already beginning their approach, and the humans knew they couldn't afford another mistake. Their fate rested on the success of the team. If the weapon couldn't be activated, they would have nothing left but to fight a losing battle. The situation grew increasingly dire as the days passed. The human fleet engaged in skirmishes with the alien forces, but each battle was a painful reminder of their weakness. The enemy seemed to know every move before the humans made it, as though they were being tracked, their every decision anticipated. The humans had no idea how their enemy had managed to learn so much about them, but it didn't matter. They were at war, and every second counted. On the brink of surrender, the scientists finally cracked the code. They found the key to activating the weapon, an ancient energy pulse that, when triggered, would send out a devastating shockwave capable of disabling enemy ships on a massive scale. It was their only shot at survival. But there was a catch. The energy pulse was unstable, and there was no guarantee it would work as intended. The weapon could destroy the entire alien fleet, or it could destroy everything within a vast radius, including Earth itself. The team of scientists debated whether to risk it. Activating the weapon could turn the tide of the war, but the consequences were unknown. With the alien fleet now entering Earth's orbit, there was no time left to hesitate. The humans had no other choice but to trust the weapon, hoping against hope that it would work. The countdown began. The scientists initiated the sequence, their hands shaking with the weight of the decision. On Earth, the military was preparing for the final confrontation, knowing that this would likely be their last stand. The entire world held its breath as the weapon powered up, its energy building, its pulse growing stronger with each passing second. The alien ships closed in, their weapons primed, ready to obliterate humanity once and for all. But just as the first wave of attacks began, the weapon activated. A brilliant, blinding pulse of energy erupted from the moon, sending shockwaves through space. The alien fleet staggered, their ships shuddering as the pulse hit. It was as though the very fabric of their technology had been torn apart. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to fall from the sky. They were powerless, their weapons malfunctioning, their engines failing. The humans had done it. They had activated the weapon just in time, and the alien fleet was in disarray. But the victory was bittersweet. As the weapon's pulse continued to destabilize, the moon's surface began to crack, and pieces of it started to break away. The humans had won the battle, but the cost was clear. The weapon had worked, but it had triggered a chain reaction that was beyond their control. In the final moments, as the moon began to disintegrate, the humans realized the full extent of their actions. They had been on the verge of extinction, and only the desperate gamble with the ancient weapon had saved them. But they had sacrificed their safety, their home, and their future in doing so. The moon, the weapon, and everything they had fought for was now at risk. And yet, despite the overwhelming odds, they had survived. Humanity had faced the unknown, had faced their regrets, and had found a way to fight back. But the cost had been high, and the galaxy would remember their bold choice for generations to come. The humans had learned one painful lesson. Independence was a dangerous thing, and in the vast expanse of the universe, no one was truly safe. The final stand was over, but the war was far from finished. Humanity had been forced to confront their past decisions, and now, with the dust settling, they had to rebuild. The road ahead was uncertain, and the future was fragile. But one thing was clear. Humanity had earned a place in the galaxy, and their regret had been transformed into something far more powerful: survival. As the dust began to settle, Earth's leaders stood before the remnants of their shattered moon, staring into the vast emptiness of space. Humanity had survived. Against all odds, they had faced the might of a superior alien force, the unknown terror that had been stalking them for months, and they had emerged victorious. But at what cost? The weapon they had activated to protect themselves had caused irreversible damage, not only to the moon, but to their future as well. The human race had been forced into a deadly gamble. They had staked everything on a weapon of unknown origin, trusting that its power would be enough to turn the tide. And it had been, just barely. But now, the moon, once a symbol of humanity's technological prowess and ambition, was shattered. Pieces of it floated aimlessly in space, debris from the destruction. The weapon had worked, but the toll it had taken was far more than anyone had anticipated. For days, there was silence. The alien fleet had been decimated, but the remaining forces that had once preyed upon humanity were not easily defeated. The humans now faced the aftermath of the war, a war that had left them not only physically scared but emotionally devastated. Earth's leaders were unsure of what to do next. While the immediate threat had been neutralized, the galaxy had witnessed humanity's desperation, and many were unsure of how other factions would view the humans now. Would they see them as a fragile species that had barely managed to survive, or as a force to be reckoned with, one that had fought back with the desperation and determination of a species that had nothing left to lose? The truth was, no one knew. But the consequences of their choices were already becoming clear. Despite the victory, many of the colonies that had survived were left in disarray, their infrastructure damaged, their populations weakened. The war had taken a toll on humanity's resources, and it was unclear how long they could sustain their recovery. The leaders of Earth found themselves in uncharted territory. The galaxy, once vast and welcoming, now seemed far more hostile. The Council, which had once protected them, was gone, and many felt a pang of regret for abandoning it. Yet, despite everything, there was hope. Humanity had proven their resilience, their ability to fight against impossible odds. In the face of annihilation, they had not bowed down. They had chosen to stand, to fight, and they had survived. That strength was something that no one could take from them. But even with that strength, the humans understood that they could not afford to be complacent. The galaxy was full of dangers, many of which they had yet to understand. The unknown ships, the mysterious alien force that had nearly wiped them out, were still a threat, lurking in the shadows. The humans might have won this battle, but the war was far from over. They had learned the hard way that their decision to leave the Council had not been the end of their struggles. It had only marked the beginning of a new chapter. On Earth, as the rebuilding efforts began, a new sense of urgency permeated everything. The governments of the human colonies were beginning to work together in ways they hadn't in years. The survivors of Arden 7, the first colony to fall, were brought to Earth to help rebuild and share what they had learned. Their experience, although horrifying, was invaluable. They had seen what the enemy was capable of, and they were determined to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. In the midst of the rebuilding efforts, Earth's brightest minds turned their attention to the remnants of the alien weapon. What had caused the moon to crack and disintegrate in such a violent fashion? What secrets had it unlocked that the humans had not yet discovered? The answers to these questions would be critical for humanity's survival. But as they worked tirelessly to understand the weapon, they began to notice something even more disturbing. There were traces of alien technology in the debris that didn't belong to any known race. It seemed that the weapon had been part of something far greater than anyone had realized. As the humans began to piece together the scattered information, they realized that their victory might not have been as simple as they thought. The weapon, the destruction of the moon, and the alien fleet's sudden retreat, they were all part of a much larger puzzle. There were forces at play in the galaxy that the humans hadn't even begun to comprehend, and the true implications of their decision to leave the Galactic Council were still unknown. The Council, it seemed, was not just a body of peacekeepers, but a gatekeeper to something far more dangerous, a force beyond their understanding, one that had been watching humanity's every move, waiting for them to make the wrong choice. The humans had broken away, thinking they were free, thinking they had escaped the influence of a corrupt and bureaucratic system. But in doing so, they had unknowingly invited an even darker force into their lives. As the days passed, the humans began to wonder, was their battle truly over, or had they just stepped into a far more dangerous part of the galaxy? One thing was clear: their decision to abandon the Council had altered their path forever. It had led them to the edge of annihilation, but it had also opened their eyes to the vast unknown that lay ahead. Now, more than ever, humanity needed to unite. They needed to learn from their mistakes, to rebuild their strength, and prepare for the challenges that would undoubtedly come. The cost of their independence had been high, but their will to survive had proven stronger. And as they looked toward the stars, they knew that the future, although uncertain, was still theirs to shape. They had earned their place in the galaxy, not just through war, but through sheer determination. Humanity had faced their greatest trial, but the true test was just beginning.